So, here's an interesting tidbit about me. I don't do gaming videos. As my channel's banner would suggest, I prefer to complain about movies, art, music, and anime. Okay, now that I think about it, I've never actually done a video about art either. But that's only because I don't know how to make a video about art. Like, what am I even supposed to say about the screen? It's a really old painting. It's been parodied to death. That's about it, really. Ah, well, 3 out of 4 ain't bad. It's no secret that gaming videos have been massively successful on this site for ages, and have even introduced us to such talents like the angry video game nerd, PewDiePie, and all the angry kids overseas destroying their keyboards for easy laughs. As fun as it would be to join their ranks and become a gaming YouTuber myself, there's just one teeny tiny problem. I am not a gamer, and probably for the best, to be honest. I haven't owned a PC since 2012. The only Call of Duty I've played is Black Ops 2, and I've never played GTA 5. Not even once. I do own some Nintendo consoles, though. That's right, kids. I'm making history. For the first time on Natsumi Movies, we're gonna reach into some uncharted territory and talk about video games. Anyways, about those Nintendo consoles. You guys remember Miis? For those of you who don't, or never owned any of these, Miis are those funny little avatars you can make and play around with for select Nintendo games, including the Mario Kart and Super Smash Bros. Franchises. And what gives Miis the sauce compared to, like, say, the Xbox avatars, is the endless creative possibilities you could make with them. You can make your Miis resemble quite literally anybody you could think of. They could look like you, your siblings, your best friend, your crush, or, if you're a Redditor, you can make Miis based on your favorite celebrities and fictional characters, as you unleash absolute chaos by pitting Sabrina Carpenter against Ridley from Metroid. Talk about literally switching it up like Nintendo. There were tons of games that featured Miis, especially during the Wii and Nintendo 3DS eras, and arguably the most popular of them all was Wii Sports. And considering this guy would go on to become a legendary figure in the Nintendo community, at this point, how could it not be? Everyone and their grandmas have played Wii Sports at some point in their lives, usually at the cost of their TV screens. Always wear protection, kids. Following the Wii U, which definitely sold well, trust me, Miis were cast aside for the Nintendo Switch, suffering a fate worse than death, being relegated to the system settings. I mean, sure, lots of Switch games still had Mii support, but by this point, they got treated more like afterthoughts. Even casual games like 1-2 Switch or Nintendo Switch Sports couldn't care any less about having Miis being playable characters. Smash Bros. Ultimate tried to make us care about Miis again by selling DLC costumes based on highly requested third-party fighters like Sans and Cuphead, which only ended up with lots of fans shaking their heads in disappointment. Case in point, Geno. If Byleth hadn't already been added to Smash, then this would have been the most tragic thing to happen to the Smash community, aside from the Grinch leaks. Nintendo really leaned hard into Miis by the 3DS days, going as far as to make 2 games that feature them in the leading roles, Tomodachi Life and Miitopia. Oh man, these games all together make for one deep, never-ending rabbit hole. Strap in, folks, because we're in for a very strange journey into the Miiverse. Hey, remember when Miiverse was a thing? This is gonna sound very funny, but Tomodachi Life is a very personal game to me. I played this game a lot when I was 13 years old, and my experiences with it have shaped me into the freaky little gremlin that I am today. You see, I've had a thing for crossovers since I was a kid. For some unknown reason, I've always been mind blown by the idea of having all these random fictional characters that have nothing in common, all uniting together inside a single universe. Every time this happens, my neuron just activates. Ready Player One, Space Jam, that one Neil Cici Erega song, every terrible parody movie in the 2000s, just to name a few examples. I also used to watch a lot of How It Should Have Ended as a kid, and I remember watching the Villain Pub episodes the most, because you just have all these bad guys from established IPs coming together to bitch about how heroes always ruin their day. Crossovers are a fun concept, when done right, and when it falls under the right hands. I had so much fun playing Tomodachi Life as a kid because I got to make the most unholy and incompatible crossovers that no sane human being could ever come up with. Remember that episode in The Office where Dwight found out that Michael Scott's best friend was actually Kiki from Kiki's Delivery Service? Because I sure don't. Tomodachi Life is a lot like The Sims, or Seaman, or Animal Crossing. If any of these games were made by an alien's approximation of how people communicate with each other. Okay, maybe that's a bit of an overstatement. Except for Seaman, that game's always been pretty weird. This is essentially a social simulation game, and the main objective here is that you create your own Miis, and then they'll come together to live on this island. Here, they can form relationships with each other, and some of them can even get married and bear their own offspring. As long as all your Miis are straight, of course. Yeah, remember when that was a thing? Miis will also sometimes have problems that you need to solve for them, which generally include feeding them, giving them clothes, giving them hats, new interiors, and really just killing time with them, I guess.
I need to sneeze, but it won't come out.
Please look inside my belly.
Yeah, this game is very weird. It should come as no surprise that this game still has a dedicated fanbase over a decade after its initial release. And for a good reason, because despite how simplistic this game looks at first, the more you play it, the more insane you and the game get. Lots of weird shit happens in this game, and it only gets weirder if you have you, your friends, and your favorite fictional characters involved in doing things that would be against their own programming otherwise. Because where else can you see Mike Shinoda from Linkin Park transform into a Power Ranger? Or Hal from Hal's Moving Castle start a rock band with the guys from Grand Theft Auto 5? You also can't talk about Tomodachi Life without mentioning that this is actually a sequel to an older game that most of you have probably never heard of. Tomodachi Life is a sequel to Tomodachi Collection, a Nintendo DS game that was released exclusively in Japan back in 2009. I've never played it, personally, but I was curious enough to watch a couple gameplay videos to get the gist of what this even is before writing this thing. Is Collection worth trying out? Well, I suppose we should let the text-to-speech voices in that game do the talking.
What's your name? My name is X Variable. What do you have blood type? My blood type is A.
By the way, even with the fan-made English subs, there's no saving those very creepy robot voices. They all sound like they're about to sing "I Feel Fantastic" any minute. Jokes aside, it's still pretty impressive for a DS game in 2009 to pack in this much content and provide support for the Miis when most games for that console didn't. Bit of a shame it never got an international release, and because of that, it's mostly been swept under the radar by most people, aside from those who spent too much time into its successor, like me. I was in 7th grade when I first played Tomodachi Life. Around this time, I mostly just made random OCs and occasionally Miis based on characters from old movies. I thought it was okay at first, nothing too special. I didn't truly get Tomodachi Life until my second playthrough in 9th grade. This was when I started making Miis entirely based on all sorts of real and fictional people that I was obsessed with at the time. YouTubers, musicians, anime girls. Suffice to say, no one was safe from becoming a part of my Tomodachi Life island. And I think this was when Tomodachi Life became more than just a game for me. It sort of became a way of life. I made Miis based on the guys from Green Day and several Ace Attorney characters. And I shit you not, this game paved the way for my obsession with both of these things. Let me reiterate, I became a Green Day fan because of Tomodachi Life. You can also make me sing in this game. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that one of the most fun parts about Tomodachi Life is the musical numbers. There are 8 types of songs that you can give to your Miis when they level up, and then you can change their lyrics to make them sing the most random, nonsensical shit imaginable. On a side note, this game comes with a swear filter on, so I suggest finding a way to turn that off to get the full experience. It's a lot easier if your game is emulated. You can also have your Miis either sing solo or by groups, as long as more than one Mii has the same song. Finally, I can make the world-renowned music producer Pharrell Williams, the man who brought us such hits like Happy and Get Lucky, sing about brain rot, with Walter White as his hype man.
Have you ever had that dream of going hot to and you're just spitting on that bed, so skibbity so giant.
After a while, I put this game away until very recently, when I felt like it was finally time to revisit my childhood obsessions. A lot can change after 7 years, but not much. This game's just as weird as I remember it. Yeah, one of the big issues with this game is that it's pretty repetitive. You can experience everything this game has to offer you within the first 2 days of playing it. After that, you're just going to experience the same problems, the same fights, and the same boring minigames over and over and over again, until you delete your save data, I guess. And yet, it's the daily updates of new stuff that keep you playing. It's almost like one of those mobile apps that you check on periodically, and I guess Nintendo was aware of this because they actually made a mobile app with certain elements from Tomodachi Life not too long ago. It shut down after 2 years because nobody used it. To this day, Tomodachi Life remains somewhat of a cult classic within the Nintendo community. I say this because its legacy boils down to two things: having its own stage in Smash Bros., and players begging on their knees to the Nintendo gods for a sequel or a Switch port, like their own personal Half-Life 3, minus the conspiracy theories. I swear, every time we get a Nintendo Direct, there's always that small group of Nintendo fans overdosing on hopium for news of a new Tomodachi Life, only to be met with great disappointment when they don't get any of that, including me. Yeah, I'm actually part of that small group too. It's been like this for the past 7 years, by the way. But I will also admit that maybe the big reason we're not getting a new Tomodachi Life for a very long while is because Nintendo has simply moved on from Miis altogether. It's a damn shame, because everyone here watching knows that if a sequel were to exist, it would definitely expand and improve upon what made Tomodachi Life so fun in the first place. Statistically speaking, if a new Tomodachi Life were to actually exist, it would sell more copies than GTA 6 on its first day. We did get this for the Switch though. I mean, hey, it's better than nothing, right? This is Miitopia, or as I like to call it, Dungeons and Dragons, for people who know absolutely nothing about Dungeons and Dragons, other than the movie maybe. I remember when this game first came out, during that brief period when I was greatly obsessed with Tomodachi Life. I never played the original 3DS version because it didn't feel like it was the proper Tomodachi Life follow-up I wanted. I kind of felt like we already had an RPG game with Miis. 2 of them actually. Find Me for the Street Pass Mii Plaza, and the Tomodachi Quest minigame from Tomodachi Life. So this game just wasn't my cup of tea. Then fast forward to 4 years later, when this game gets ported to the Nintendo Switch, and I thought the same thing everybody else was thinking. What about Tomodachi Life? But then I saw that the Switch port had a new feature where you could add all kinds of makeup to your Miis, and make them look exactly like your favorite celebrities or fictional characters. Never before has the Mii creator ever been this complex and elaborate, and it made lots of waves on my FYP when this port first came out. There were even memes about how Miitopia had better customization options than a game that spent a literal decade in development. Kids had their fun already, now it's real men's turn. So that convinced me to finally give Miitopia a shot. And guess what? It's not as good as Tomodachi Life. I mean, the game's still pretty fun. The revamped Mii creator is enough to make the Switch version the definitive way to play this game, because now you'll be able to fill this game's cast with more recognizable IPs than the Uncanny Valley cameo scene in The Flash. Most of the NPC roles in this game are filled up by whatever Miis you have saved on your Switch, meaning you can have Dwayne, I pissed inside water bottles and inflated the budget of my shitty Christmas movie to $250 million Johnson, play a genie. And that's exactly what I did. Look everyone, it's Eustace from those Ace Attorney spin-off games. He's trying to date Princess Canon Shibuya from Love Live, who is the daughter of Omni-Man from Invincible, except Princess Canon loves Scott Pilgrim. Yeah, this game feels more like one of those fill-in-the-blanks ad-libs games that you'd play with your friends while drunk, like a game of Jackbox, with Redditors. But enough yapping about characters that you and I recognize. What do you actually do in Miitopia? It's a basic RPG where you can only control your self-insert during battles, and have a bunch of anime girls fill up the rest of your party in different roles. I personally went with Trucy Wright from Ace Attorney as a mage, doing more in this game than she has in the last two mainline games, Futaba Sakura from Persona 5 as a thief, the best girl from Love Live Nijigasaki as a pop star, and Wolverine, who's having a midlife crisis, as is tradition. And the story of this game is that there's this Dark Lord who's going around Miitopia, stealing all the Miis faces and transferring them into these weird monsters. So you and your party go around Miitopia, trying to save these poor bastards, and eventually facing the Dark Lord himself. I made my Dark Lord SpongeBob. I think the most impressive thing about Miitopia, aside from its character creator, is the fact that they put a lot of effort into making a genuine RPG with your Miis. This is a long-ass game, and it increases in difficulty as you go along. It's a great way to introduce newcomers into the RPG genre, even if half the time it comes off more like a self-aware parody of RPGs, like an extended episode of Konosuba, written by Seth MacFarlane. You can even have a horse in this game. You can customize it. You can even have it snort and cause tons of damage against your enemies. I modeled mine after Yoshi, if you could tell by his slight off-brand name. I'm not really the best when it comes to subtlety. What's also fascinating about Miitopia is that this is kind of a sequel to Tomodachi Life, since it retains some of the social simulation elements from that game. It's not as natural, however, since in Tomodachi Life, Miis just make friends with whoever they please. They can take their relationships further by becoming BFFs or soulmates. They can also have quarrels, and if their relationships are unstable enough, then there's a good chance those quarrels could put an end to those relationships for good, almost like in real life. Non-Miitopia though. You can choose whichever Miis you want to get together, making it much easier to ship your favorite characters than it was in Tomodachi Life. And the stronger your relationships are, the more powerful your party will be in battles. Certain members will show off for one another, causing extra damage to their enemies. Two members can even attack from both the front and the back, look after whoever's wounded in battle, all sorts of stuff. Quarrels are also a thing in this game, but they're not as big of a deal as they were in Tomodachi Life. Sometimes they'll just act like assholes in battle, and that's kind of it. They don't break up, and you can resolve these fights easily by taking your Miis to a screening of Red 1, starring Dwayne, the hierarchy of power in Miitopia is about to change Johnson.
A level 4 naughty lister?
Make no mistake when I say that the Mii creator in this game is genuinely impressive. And it's led to a lot of talented folks with too much time in their hands, making some of the best recreations of popular characters I've ever seen in my entire life. Because of that, I felt demotivated to make my own Miis. So, with a Nintendo Switch Online account and a dream, I decided to take other people's Miis and use them for my own Miitopia story. I may have messed with the natural order in the process. Remember when I said I brought in Trucy Wright into this game? Well, here's the thing. Not only is she my favorite Ace Attorney character, but she's also one of my favorite video game characters of all time. I've been a huge fan of her ever since I first added her to my second Tomodachi Life walkthrough. She's just so cute and optimistic. That smile could cure cancer if it could. So I made her one of the most OP characters in the game. I also saw Wicked recently, and I thought it was pretty good. I have never seen the Broadway musical myself, but I know my mom's a huge fan of it, and has even read the book it's based on. I'm not even a theater kid. In fact, I kinda hate theater kids. But even I have to admit that the musical numbers in this go hard. Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande play Elphaba and Glinda so damn well that I think they're just as good as the original Broadway performers, as long as you ignore the whole drama going on with this movie's marketing. And I want to give a quick shout out to Defying Gravity, because that's gotta be one of my favorite blockbuster moments of the year. I was chained to the edge of my seat for the entire number, that I almost caught myself singing along to the lyrics. I've never done this with a musical adaptation before, mind you. But yeah, solid movie. Definitely one of the better musical to film adaptations, and I'm most certainly looking forward to seeing how they keep up with the momentum they've built for part 2. I also recreated Elphaba and Glinda for my Miitopia party. Here's them finding a mouse alongside Momo and Okaroon from Dan to Dan. Here's the access code, by the way, if you guys want to make them a part of your own Miitopia shenanigans. With other RPGs on the Switch, or 5-star meals cooked by Gordon Ramsay himself, then Miitopia is more like the fast food equivalent. It's loud and it's dumb, but it'll get the job done if you're looking for a quick rush before work. It's also a pretty good RPG if your greatest desire in life is to have your favorite superheroes and anime girls fight by your side. Talking to other people is hard, okay? Although I must admit that this game isn't as charming or as balls to the wall crazy as Tomodachi Life, even though less stuff happens in that game. I think the lack of text-to-speech voices, coupled with these simplified personalities in this game, kinda strips away what made Tomodachi Life so fun for me in the first place. Oh, and also there's an enemy in this game called the Twerky. It's called the Twerky. I'm not making that up. A group of developers and animators worked their asses off to make this a recurring enemy in the game. I think your enjoyment of Miitopia will entirely depend on whether you think that this is funny or cringe. These two games are what comes to mind the most when the topic of Mii games gets brought up. Sure, other games like Pilot Wings Resort or Wii Sports can technically count as Mii games, but not to me. I think people play those games more for their gimmicks, not for the Miis themselves. On their own, it's quite easy for Miis to come off as bland and one-dimensional, since they're supposed to be more like representations of the players and less like actual fleshed-out characters. So when it came to Miitopia and Tomodachi Life, Nintendo's brilliant move was to make the Miis in those games so fucking weird that it would make the Daniels look quaint. Which really makes you wonder, what are Mii games even supposed to be about? I don't know, you tell me. I think it's safe to say that these are some of the strangest things Nintendo's done since those love hotels they ran in the 60s. These games are like the video game equivalent of those memes, where a bunch of random fictional characters react to sad breaking news. Most of the time, there's no cohesion or unifying theme, and the simplistic nature of these games is really more like a blank canvas for you to just splat random coats of paint all over thinking you're Jackson Pollock. No matter who you include in these games, whether it be yourself, your friends, family members, love interests, or fictional characters, it only makes these games even weirder. And I think that's why a lot of people, including myself, like these games so much. Because where else can you see Optimus Prime and Makima sing karaoke, or Mario being married to Love Life Seiyu Naomi Payton? AO3 or Wattpad, probably.
Oni na
Sense.